Welcome everyone. Thank you very much for being here. It's a pretty good crowd this morning. We do have our fire chief is here this morning. We have council members Lane and McCoy. We have Sarah Borelli, Vice Mayor Sheehy, and of course our city manager, Jessica Knudsen. Did I forget somebody? All right, so let's just kind of give a brief city update. There's a lot of activity going on in town. In fact, you probably saw in the newspaper today that tourism in Mojave County is at its highest in 20 years. If it's if it's the highest in 20 years, it's the highest ever. There's no way it could be lower than 20 years ago. I don't know where. I'm assuming that's when they started doing statistics. I'm not sure. So, but there is a lot of activity. The projects we've talked about continue to move forward. The new hotel, they had hoped to be open by now, but it's looking more like September 1 at this point in time. When I go over there and look, they've still got paving of the parking lot. They've got some landscaping to do. All the rest of that good stuff. So hopefully it will be in the next 30 days. The Havasu Riviera project is still on track to open on, I'd say, sometime in December. We're exploring with ADOT the ability to open up the launch ramp prior to the light going in by having a right turn only. Right turn in, right turn out. We would, if everything is ready, we would prefer to open up the launch ramp for use by our citizens as opposed to waiting for a signal light to be completed. And ADOT, when I first talked to them, was receptive to that idea. So we'll see what happens with that. But everything else along there is going well. Let's see, what else did we talk about in the past? Oh yeah, let's talk about the Havasu Community Health Foundation and Food Bank. As you know, interagency closed their doors, and Havasu Community Health Foundation called me because they were interested in, and they called Cal too, I believe, and they were interested in taking over the counseling programs, which are needed in the community, and we were excited about that. And after talking for a little while, I asked them if they would have any interest in taking over the food bank. Food bank, this time of year, serves about 400 families. Wintertime, about 700 families. And I had indicated that obviously that's pretty important to the community, but having said that, it's also a tremendous undertaking. The number of volunteers that it requires is pretty hefty. They thought about it for overnight and called me back and said, let's talk about how we can get that done. Long story short, we found a place for them to operate out of. It's a city-owned property on Kiowa. It used to be our parks maintenance buildings. Those buildings and that property hadn't been used in a couple of years because we had moved things to another location to be a little bit more efficient. We had considered putting it up for sale, but knowing how important this food bank is to the community, we decided to lease it to them for 5 years with a 5-year option. They will put over $40,000 of improvements into the property. We credit them for those improvements as part of the rent. For those wondering, well, why don't you just give it to them for free? The Arizona Constitution gift clause says you cannot do that. We don't care if it's a nonprofit or not. You don't give away taxpayer dollars. So we figured out the market rate for the rent, all the rest of that good stuff, and then gave them credit. They're already started. They told me yesterday they hope to have that open by September 1st and serving families, which is pretty exciting. So kudos to the Havasu Community Health Foundation and their board for for stepping up to help our local families in need. The budget is now set we finished that up in late June, early July. And as everybody knows, we have an election coming up August 28th, and you can do early voting now. Lots of important changes on that election. We'll have 3 new council members, a new mayor, and of course Proposition 409, which I think at some point today I'll answer any questions you have on Proposition 409. So overall, the economy locally is doing incredibly well. We're excited to see the new changes. One of the issues that's come up lately is affordable housing, because now housing is becoming more expensive. That's an important issue, but I smile when I hear that, because I heard that 12 years ago when I became the mayor. What are we going to do about affordable housing? And then when the national economy took a tank, the question was, what are you going to do about making sure my home values are higher? So free market tends to take to fix these kinds of things. The best thing the city can do on affordable housing is to provide local zoning that makes it easier for those who want to build smaller homes, etc., to do so. But you got to be careful with that too, because if you say I'm going to zone a large area, you actually are creating a problem in the future. So we'll address those needs. I think besides just housing, that also, when you think of the single-family residence, it really is also talking about affordable apartments and rents and that sort of thing. I was young once as well, and it took me a long time to be able to buy a home in California, so I certainly understand all of that. But I guess what happens when our home values go up, it's a byproduct of a great economy. So really that's the silver lining, so to speak. All right, did I forget any? Oh, it is going to be Jerry's birthday tomorrow. Jerry Bracamani, my assistant, it's her birthday tomorrow. And she also wanted me to remind everybody that the next Coffee with the Mayor will be on September 14th, not the week prior. So September 14th, we're working out a location. That's going to be large enough. So the group has continued to grow, and so we want to find a location that will be large enough to do that. And then by then also we'll know pretty much we'll know for sure the results of Prop 409. We'll know who our new mayor is. We actually may know who a couple of our new council members will be as well. For those of you who don't know how that process works, in terms of a new mayor, it's pretty simple because there's only 2 people running, and so one will win in August. It's just as simple as that. Council is a formula, which I'm probably going to mess it up. But to get in as a council member, basically what you have to do is you have to garner 50% of the votes plus 1. And that's not easy to do because a lot of times there's 3 openings, so people will vote for 3. Some people won't vote for all 3 or whatever. So they have to accumulate all the votes for council, divide it by 3, and then divide it by 2. And anybody over that number by at least 1, if I would get this right, will automatically be a new council member. The remaining seats, so let's say that 2 get in August, just for grins. That means there'd be 1 seat left. So then the next 2 top vote getters go to the general election, and it's determined from there. So that's how that kind of works.
Mayor,
yes.
Are they all registered voters?
They have to be. You mean the council members?
For everybody, are they all registered?
All the voters.
All the voters
Oh, heck-
registered?
Well, voters, yes, are registered.
Okay.
Non-voters aren't.
I just wanted to know that.
Non-voters aren't. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of people that don't vote, and that's a shame because it's, especially when I look at local elections, your voice can be pretty loud in a local election. And so for those of you, I think it's too late to register at this point because early voting has started. But if you are registered, please vote. It's always very, very important. Okay, let's open it up for questions. Well, that's easy. David.
Since somebody's asking a question, I'll start it.
Okay.
I heard a thing on the radio the other day that said that the mayor's job is no different than any other city council member, and all you do is open and close meetings and attend events. And that's being played on the radio. Can you tell us what your job really entails so we can vote for the right person?
Boy, if the job was that easy, then I would understand why I only get paid $11,000 a year. But no, the mayor's job is quite different than that. Yes, my vote doesn't count any more than any other council member. There's a total of 7 of us. My vote is exactly the same. And yes, I do. My responsibility is to run the meetings, etc. But really what the mayor's job is, well, there's so many different things, and Jerry will probably tell you. If you think about people looking at Lake Havasu City or any other city, the mayor's position is considered the voice of that city. And while I don't set policies, I certainly do my best to set direction and leadership. The council as a whole will set the policy. But over the 12 years I have been mayor, there have been so many other things that the mayor's position has to do. We just talked about the Havasu Community Health Foundation taking over the food bank. Well, who do you think they're going to call? They always call the person at the head of the table, so to speak, the mayor, and as Cal likes to put it, it's really the CEO of the city. During our sewer refinancing, that was something that I had a background in, and so I spearheaded that project along with another council member, Don Callahan. Met with all the investors that would buy our bonds. I had to meet with insurance agencies that rated our bonds. You name it, I had to meet with them and had to be completely knowledgeable about the process, etc. The mayor's job is, as I said before, is also to really provide a vision moving forward and to garner support for that vision from the council members. But that vision has to be built on what the community is telling you is important to them. And if you're not listening to that community and you're building a vision on what's important to just you, your vision won't be well accepted over time. So, and then you just get to the administrative things. I have to sign virtually every important document in the city. Jess signs them, I have to sign them. So you better understand what the heck's in those documents. It's not something that you can just simply say, well, every day I wake up, the only thing I'm going to do today is go out, kiss babies, take pictures, and go to meetings. It doesn't work that way at all. My job usually takes, today, because we have things a little bit smoother, my hours are a little bit less, but I can tell you when I first took over in 2006, things were not, for those who have been living here, this city was in tremendous turmoil, and I was probably working somewhere between 50 and 60 hours on a weekly basis just to get things back to a smooth operation. So it does take a lot of effort, and And what I think is really tremendous is that I've had great councils. These folks have been great, and my other councils, and they've been very supportive. During that refinancing, and some of you heard Charlie Cassins talk about it, basically the council said, you've got experience in that area, do it. Just keep us informed, do it. And without that support, it would have been very, very difficult to get anything done. But the result of that massive refinancing is sewer rates haven't gone up since 2010, and we don't see any rate increases in the foreseeable future. So it was a huge success, and we refinanced during a period that interest rates were at all-time lows. So it created generational equity so that people that are here today aren't paying any more than somebody that's going to show up 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So it made it much more equitable. Before that project, all of us in the room were paying way more than the people that were going to move here 5 years from now. And that wasn't fair at all. Donna?
I just wanted to add some of the things that you left out. You've been in charge of the Tri-City Council, which takes 3 cities and goes to Phoenix, and we're one voice instead of 3 different voices, and that's been crucial for the growth of our city. You also have met countless times with our governor and senators and congresspeople, and gone to DC to get things for us for our city's growth, and especially the sewer and protecting our river, which is the livelihood of Lake Havasu. So it has been a full-time job, and we've been very fortunate to have mayor, and we're going to have a great new mayor soon who takes this job as seriously as Mayor Nexon, and of course we all know that's Cal.
Chuck.
Yeah, you're also involved in Leads of Towns and Cities and
Yes.
stuff like that.
I'm the vice president.
If the new mayor is working, or, because I know you've been retired, and like the rest of us out here.
Well, I only retired 3 years ago.
But can the mayor actually designate somebody else to fill those roles that you've been filling?
Yes and no. When it comes to the League of Arizona Cities and Towns, no. What has to happen is yes and no on that one. Typically, it is a city chosen, but the representative is chosen in advance, and they have to apply for the position. When it comes to some of the other chairmanships, the MPO that I chair, that could actually be somebody other than the mayor. I also chair the Public Safety Retirement System, Police and Fire Boards. That is really supposed to be the mayor doing that. Crisco, Clean Colorado River Sustainability Coalition, which I've been the chair of for the last 12 years. That could be somebody other than the mayor, but for whatever reason, I've been the chair of that for a long time. But it's a worthwhile group, and has done some wonderful work along the river. So there are some things that the mayor can designate, but most often it doesn't really work that well. Councilmember McCoy is correct. When you're meeting with people that are either at the federal or state level, it's usually going to have to be the mayor's position that coordinates that. So there's a lot of things to do, to say the least. Senator Burley.
Mr. Mayor, on the responsibilities of the mayor, did you leave out in case of civil unrest or a national disaster, who takes over?
Yeah, interesting enough, our code does say that if we had a citywide emergency, then what happens is that the mayor is responsible for taking over police and fire and designating resources to handle that situation. I took that very seriously, and in fact, in 2007, I went back to Maryland for a week-long training on FEMA, with FEMA. And we took something like 30, 35 individuals with us, not just from here, but from La Paz County, Mojave County, Kingman area, various nonprofits that would have to be involved in a national or a regional disaster. So I took it very seriously and went back for that training. And that training was incredible. What they did was before we went back, they came out to the city and tried to figure out what the most likely natural disaster would be in Lake Havasu City. And then when you went back, you were set up, I mean, besides the basic training, you were put into different groups, and you had role playing to the extent of you had a microphone and TV cameras stuck in your face. You had to respond to it as quickly and think as quickly as you could. One of the things that occurred was that in the policy room that I was in, I'll never forget this, so the phone rings in the policy room. And I pick it up, and there was a connection from an airplane. And it was a lady explaining to me that she was flying toward Lake Havasu City, and this is in the middle of, I'm trying to deal with the natural disaster, which, by the way, they thought would be a flood to one of our washes. She's telling me that her husband has just had a heart attack, and he's the only pilot on the plane, and now what do I do to get this plane down? And I'm thinking, uh-oh. So fortunately, I said, you know what? I'll get a hold of our airport manager. He is a pilot. Stuck him on, and he guided her down toward the airport. That's the kind of training you get, and it was incredibly valuable. Never going to forget it, and it at least made me personally comfortable that if something like that happened, I would be prepared for it. By the way, all of that was paid for by the federal government. Yeah, because they want people to be knowledgeable and trained in the event of a local natural disaster, and so that's pretty cool. Dave?
Mayor, give us an update on ADOT on the Highway 95 in front of Food City.
That's us. Isn't that us?
No, that's the,
Are you talking about the
road.
Oh, the road piece of it? Okay, because the reason I said it was us because they gave us a bunch of rock that we're gonna put down, and since we couldn't get them to do the landscaping, they gave us a bunch of rock, so we're gonna do it ourselves. Finally, it's funny. I asked for that 12 years ago. I guess if you wait long enough, it eventually happens. That is what we had hoped to do was actually get some additional funding so that we could do the entire stretch along there, a median. We actually applied for some additional funds, agreed to the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which I chair. We agreed to provide some funds toward that. The city agreed to apply some funds toward that project. And unfortunately, we didn't get the project from ADOT. They still plan to do the smaller piece of it. So a shorter median, and then in 2020, with any luck, they'll complete that project.
How far are we talking about?
When do you think that's going to start, Jess?
for phase one, it'll take at least 12 months out. Yeah.
12 months out.
And how far?
How far?
Yeah, from Kiowa to industrial or what?
Oh, no, it goes the other direction. It goes to, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's gonna go the other direction. The issue's been that coming out of that strip mall, the old Walmart shopping center, if you will, people were making left turns in and left turns out, and we had more accidents there than any place else. So ADOT came in and said it's time that we put a median that prevents that. The problem with the median is that then it backs up the traffic to the light and trying to make a left-hand turn. So what we said was, that's going to be another disaster. What we really want is another light toward the other end of that shopping center so that people can get in and out pretty easily. And that's the project that got turned down. So,
Too close together.
well, they didn't mind it being too close together. They just felt there were more important projects in Arizona than this one. So, having said that, though, we are going to reapply for those funds and hopefully get that in 2020 or 2021. So we haven't given up by any means. It's an important project. Part of the reason they turned us down is that we couldn't show, I guess, some safety statistics of how that light would make things better. In my
Crash
own
data
mind,
fatalities.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like, well, just think with common sense. You're going to realize that if you back up all that traffic to that one light, it's going to be, some people are going to find another way in, and it's not going to be pretty. So,
Mayor, the other thing too is that ADOT's working on 95 and industrial 95. Are they gonna work on that side of the road, going across from industrial over 95, on the left-hand side by the across street from Bradley Ford? It's blockaded with all those weeds and bushes there that we have to stick our nose further out to make a right-hand turn. Are they gonna work on that particular thing? I mean, that's gonna
I'd
be
like to
a
remove-
safety issue.
yeah, I would like to remove all that natural vegetation. But we're not supposed to go in the right way and do that. But I think if we convince them that it's becoming a traffic hazard, it wouldn't be an issue. So we can, Jerry, if you wouldn't mind making a note of that, we'll take it, see if we can't get them to do that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, you and the city manager both have stated that chip seals should last 5 to 7 years. And we're doing good in the last 2 years to have it last 5 to 7 months, some places 5 to 7 weeks. So I've been doing some research on chip seals.
Okay.
And LA County's got a pretty neat program on what they're doing for their chip seal. And a couple things, they only use certified material. If it shows up non-certified, it doesn't get used. They have quality control for, are we getting enough tar of the emulsion, the right size rocks, all that stuff. They also go in immediately after brushing the gravel and do a fog seal and then put sand down and roll it again. And they
Right.
say that's what keeps the rocks from going. They're not doing any of that here. I'm not sure
No.
they're doing any quality control here, but we can't keep spending money the way we have on this chip seal that, go up Kiowa and at Havasu. It looks like the Exxon Valdez parked up there, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty bad.
We used to do the fog seal, and then when the Great Recession hit, the fog seal doesn't really help much, to be honest with you. It just makes it look better. And that's why we discontinued it during the Great Recession, because we felt spending money on aesthetics wasn't a great idea.
Well, and there's only 3 things that can really have changed in the last 2 years. It's either the material, the procedure, or the process.
Or the contractor.
Or the
Or the
contractor.
contractor, okay.
And that
So-
is something that did change.
So
Yeah.
it's not a pretty deal.
No, we recognize that. Another area that I didn't think was well done either was right there at Acoma and Jamaica. And so we will be dealing with the contractor on that process. And we're always, at this point, it looks like we're finally going to get some of our state HERF funding back because of some new funding that has been done. And I know Senator Borelli has worked very hard to make sure that we get some of it back. I think over the next couple of years, and of course I won't be on the council, but my guess is that we are going to change some of those processes now that the HERF money is back and we're able to afford to do that. Chip seal, When done correctly, will last 5 to 7 years and extend the life of a road. When done incorrectly, you're right, it could last a couple of months.
And I'm certain we didn't pay any less for what we got these last 2 years than we did the previous 2 years.
We used to do it ourselves. We used to do it ourselves.
So what you're seeing with the chip seal too, where you say it failed, it's sound. The road is sound, but what happens is they put a coat of tar down and then they put the rocks down, and if those rocks flip or turn, then we're seeing the tar that should be on the bottom side of the rock that's on the top side of the rock. So that's why you're seeing the Exxon Valdez spill that, as you indicated, on those streets. There's still sound structural streets without potholes or cracking, and that's very important, but the aesthetic, it's not what we want to see in the end. You kind of we allude to it all the time as far as the cost of these methods. It's a very cost-effective way of building sound roads that are very, very reliable. Over a course of time, they become very smooth, and we enjoy those roads. The application of the roads obviously causes a concern with the rocks flying everywhere, and we hear lots of complaints with regards to that. We are looking at a couple different alternatives, and we'll probably be introducing an alternative method if it's cost effective here when we do our annual maintenance program in the spring. So right now we've been in discussions with a few different options. Just like a recipe you cook with in the kitchen, there is many recipes with how these roads can be maintained, and so we're looking at a variety of those and looking at the cost side of those, and then the life of that road associated with that. So we're looking at a cost per yard per year, and then obviously want a good product at the end of the day.
I was just wondering, does it, and I'm asking because I don't know this, does the extreme heat from here make a difference as opposed to Southern California, or?
Yeah, Councilmember McCoy, absolutely. So that's why we have to do with the chip seal program occurs early on in the February timeframe each year, because when you put that tar down, if it gets too gooey, then it doesn't apply. We did get some increased temperatures this year, earlier than anticipated, and that did lead to some of the things that you're alluding to as far as that goes. But yeah, there's a lot of science behind the application of this product, and weather is a big one. Absolutely. Yeah.
Fast observation, the repairs done on Chimawavy were done earlier in the year with chip seal.
Mm-hmm.
They're holding up beautifully. They've done absolutely fine. As far as I'm concerned, the repaving of the road to repair the seam cracks between the pavement pavers machines lay down is fine. It's holding up. Whereas the one on Jamaica, at the end of the day they laid their stone. The next, that was a Friday. On Monday, it went to 110 degrees
Right.
and liquefied the whole thing. So
Right.
now we've got a clean black tar road. It is temperature
Right.
critical.
Absolutely. The consistency of that tar when it goes down, you want it gooey and sticky so the rocks stick to it and then they don't move. But if the temperature gets too hot, then it turns into a liquid and then they go everywhere.
Question, they do roller it, right?
Right.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. They not had time to set up then before the heat hit,
Right.
allowed it to debond. Okay,
Yeah.
just curious.
There's some of these products that are like a pre-coated chip seal too. Going back to the recipes, they cost a little bit more, but then they kind of avoid some of those situations if weather does come up. But yeah, temperature was a big factor.
Chuck?
Yeah, I worked in the industry for over 30 years, and a lot of the termination or the terms, fog seal is just oil.
Right.
Slurry seal is oil and sand.
Yeah.
Then your chip seal is oil and usually sand, depending on the contractor, and rock. And chips, what it is it's fine chips in that. The one thing that some contractors I've seen do, they'll use a recycled, really light oil. You know, with these oils, especially the synthetics now, they're getting recycled oil and using that, and it seems to tend, like years ago we used to use 30, 40 weight oil. Now it's 5 and 10 weight oil in that, and it makes a difference. The weight of the oil that they're using. Everybody says tar. It's not really tar. It's still an oil. But if they would take and I did a lot of work in LA County. And they had this process. What they would do is they would clean the street, put down the slurry steel, the chips right on top of that,
Right.
and then roll it, no matter if it's because I know what I understand here is they only roll the streets that have no real heavy traffic. The ones that have heavy traffic, they just let the cars pack it down. Is that the way I understand it?
I think they're rolling in most of the streets. I have to verify, street by street. I can't provide that information, Chuck, but I think
That's
that.
the way I understood it.
Okay.
With all the major
Yeah.
streets that have a lot of
Yeah.
traffic, they just let the cars pack it
Yeah,
down.
generally speaking, that is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then smaller streets like cul-de-sacs and whatnot, you couldn't do that. There wasn't enough traffic, so
No,
we
but
would roll it.
They do need to check the oils that they're using, if it's heavy enough weight, and the gentleman said certified, you can't, certified is, just depends on what area you're getting the rock from. When I worked in San Gabriel, we shipped material all over, because we had absolutely the best rock in the area, in all of Southern California, the plants there. And so, but they do need to check the oil, weight of the oil, find out what they're doing. And if the chip seal itself, if they're just putting oil in the chips down, it doesn't hold as good. And it is temperature sensitive, yeah.
Yep. Cool. Yes, sir.
Real quick, what are your specs call out for on what weight oil?
Oh, I mean, we can go back with
And
this.
as your inspectors
Don't know the
enforcing it.
Yeah, I don't know the
Now,
answer to that.
let's- hate to do this to everybody, but I'm another California person that worked for the government, Caltrans. So when I quote something, it's not California specs, it's federal specs. I went to the city complaining about, they have a new project going in there and repaving the parking lot. And I know those stores don't own that parking lot, somebody owns it. And I went into the city and said, how do you turn around and put a parking spot, handicapped parking spot, in front of the curb ramp? How does a person get out of his car in a wheelchair and get up that ramp when a car's parked? And the guy goes, I hate to say this about your code guy, we've had attorneys from Phoenix come in here and we've run them out. What gives you the expert? And I said,
We
I
don't
work for-
run
wait a
any
minute,
attorneys
I-
out.
Oh, you're gonna hear something else. I worked for Caltrans for 30 years. Well, this is Arizona, not California. And I said, I'm quoting you federal minimum
Yeah,
code.
ADA standards are
The
federal.
last one I found online is 2010. You guys aren't even close to it. There's no enforcement. People parking handicap without handicap stickers or anything. And I was a bugger on this way before I became handicapped, because I had to be working for Caltrans. I was electrical design, worked on the streets and all that. I hate to say this, the guys park legally, but they have a handicap there blocking half the curb ramp. Aren't you guys, when you guys go in there and get permits, don't these parking people look at us, okay, they're doing improvements, we're putting a food trailer on our property, now we're gonna block the handicap ramp and everything else, and they just sit there and say, we don't need to follow any of those, they're no longer.
Well, I don't know the
this.
specific instance, but if you'll send me an email or afterwards tell me exactly where you're talking about.
I wrote it all down and I ran out of the house. In fact, I had.
Well, that won't help me much, but,
Yeah, I know.
but yeah, get the information to me and we're happy to take a look
Here's
at
the other
it.
thing I have a gripe about is that person wanted me to drive around. I can drive around, I could be there all year finding out these places that have blockage for these parking. When they had improvements in the thing, I could be here a year long. If you guys are willing to pay me my $50 I get paid in California,
You
I'll
got
do
50
it.
bucks a year, we'll do
No.
it.
$50 an hour.
Oh, no. I'm getting $1.50 an hour, so I'll give you that.
Okay, the other thing is, when the guys were out striping, they do a great job, and I asked them, why don't you stripe the red, redo the red so that people can see it? And they told me that Fire department wanted it done yearly, we can't do it, which doesn't, yearly. But you can barely see them, people are parked around the curves. If the fire department was supposed to take it over, why aren't they doing it?
Are we supposed to, is the fire department supposed to be painting red curbs?
I have never painted a curb, Mayor. I didn't know that. That's new to me, but I'll find out.
However, I believe when he was in the Marine Corps, he probably painted a rock.
Yes, sir.
As military, after boot camp, whatever they asked you to do, you did.
Copy that.
So, paint them.
Yeah, send me that information and we're happy to follow up on it, absolutely. Other questions?
I have
Yes,
something
ma'am.
to say. Oh.
Oh, go ahead.
Who's responsible for the easements between properties for the utility lines? Is it the homeowner? Or is it?
It depends. We just had these.
Oh, did you just
very-
have one of these?
Well, now what's occurring, first of all, those easements belong to the, those are utility easements. And for, there's a couple of things. You're allowed to request for abandonment, and then the other one is for, what is the other term, encroachment. We just met with the realtors because as we've had more and more infill, it's become more difficult for the utility companies to access their poles. And they showed me some of the pictures. Somebody literally put the pool right up next to the pole and then put cement around it. And they're like, okay, so if the electricity goes out, exactly how am I supposed to get up there? But if you're talking about being able to encroach on it or have it abandoned, those are all done by the utility companies. If you're saying, well, about cleaning them up maybe, that would be the utility company's responsibility.
It's a utility company.
Yeah, it's become more and more difficult for homeowners to get either abandonments or allowed encroachments. And the other problem with it is that some of the homeowners take advantage of it. So they will get allowed encroachment, and the plans are approved, and then they put in permanent structures that is not allowed, et cetera, because if a utility company needs to get to those poles, and they're unable to do it, that means everybody suffers because of it. So, it's been a difficult issue. Yes.
The easement's actually owned by the property owner.
Correct.
So the land's still, so if it's debris or something, that the property owner would be responsible for taking care of their property. The easement just allows the utility, depending on what the easement's for,
Right.
the utility to get in and out, but if it's an unsightly easement, or unsightly debris within the easement, the property owner is responsible for that.
Yeah, the other piece of it is that on those easements, if you do encroach and, because people put fences, you name it, what homeowners don't understand is if the utility company needs to tear it down to get access, the utility company does not have to pay for it to be fixed. And homeowners, and the really issue there, usually the first homeowner understands that. It's when the home's sold 2, 3, 4 times, they go, what are you talking about? You've torn my fence down. Sorry, you shouldn't have put it there. I didn't put it there. Well, it's yours now, and it's too bad. So, Chuck.
Yeah, did you say that the homeowner was illegally putting permanent structures in, or the guy with that pool put it right up to the pole?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if they're doing it illegally, the inspector's not out there. Because my next door neighbor put
Now,
a pool in.
what
and
they
he
do
couldn't
is they
even have
put-
it 10 feet
Right.
from where the power line, not even a pole, just the power line. He had to be 10 feet away from that.
That is correct. They do it subsequent without telling anybody.
Well, if they're putting a pool in,
They're not even getting
and the
a permit?
inspector's
No, they
not
get a permit for the
checking that.
pool, they get a permit for the pool, but then they add all that additional cement at a later date. That does not show on the permit. They build fences because we don't permit fences unless it's a retaining wall
Or above 6 feet.
or above 6 feet. So
You allow those retaining walls in the easement?
generally, no.
Well, my neighbor got it done.
It depends whether it was abandoned.
So
So you
that-
can have those things abandoned.
Yeah, well.
We get requests for that all the time.
Utility companies have to approve that, right?
Correct.
And then they're biting themselves in the butt, because they're not gonna tear down my garage, because the neighbor behind me put a wall up in a pool, and the other neighbor on the side of me put a wall up. They're not tearing down my garage, it's 5 feet away.
Right. And that's been the argument right now, is because of all the infill. Here's the argument we hear from the homeowner. Let's say you buy a lot, and your neighbor has either an encroachment right or an abandonment, and the other neighbor has the same, and you go apply, and the utility company says no. And you say, well, that's not fair, because they got it, why can't I have it? The utility company, on the other hand, says there's a point where we just have to say no, because if we don't get access, then you don't get electricity, you don't get telephone, you don't get cable, whatever it is. So it's a tough situation, and as we
5
fill in
feet
as a
isn't much
community.
room for them to back up there to their pole.
What's that?
5 feet that they allowed, as I gave them the easement, doesn't give them much room for their 10-foot wide truck to get back there, because they allowed somebody else to get in there.
That's what I'm telling you.
Yeah, so there's a process in place. So if you want to put up a temporary structure in a easement, you have to go through the process and get the permission from the utility company. Some of these are concrete pads, walls, fences, even AC units, things like that. So you apply for permission to put these temporary improvements into the easement. The utility company will either grant that request or not. And as the mayor alluded to, they're looking at these from a case-by-case basis. And then it's not necessarily an equality perspective, but if they're looking at a block of homes and they've allowed encroachments and all the easements, and then you're the last one to request that, well, if that last request would then seal off and close off the ability for them to access that area, then they're going to deny that application. We all want to build on our property. We all want to put up these amenities that exist. But we had a meeting, mayor and vice mayor. We had a meeting with staff and Unisource and Frontier and the Realtors Association, and it's a balance because we want to make these improvements. But Unisource is talking to us about the fact that the need for a power line goes down that's serving a daycare center and a half a dozen homes when it's 115 degrees out. We need those folks out there immediately to make those repairs. So it's that balance. That's why it's one of those things that needs to take place. We want to enjoy our yards.
I didn't encroach, I didn't ask, I built by code.
Sure.
But there's pools and walls right on the right of way, and they're supposed to be 10 feet away from on the back, 5 feet on the side, and they don't have it.
You're always going to find unpermitted improvements and things like that. If you get with us as far as specifics, we can take a look at it. As far as improvements that are permitted within the easement, that's a utility company that makes that decision based on the size of their vehicles and the other access points that they have available to them.
Yes, ma'am.
Another situation that occurs where my house is up a little towards the back of the town where it gets hilly, and the easement's 10 feet at either side of the power line, and it's sloped like that, literally. There's no way the trucks can go up that, they're gonna tip over.
Correct.
So whenever they need access, we always tell them to just go in the yard, there's a path up through our yard, but sometimes even that 10 feet is not really viable. I mean, it's there on the paper, but in 3 dimensions, even that doesn't work always.
Yeah, no, that's correct. In fact, that came up during the meeting we had with the utility company and the realtors that, because somebody was denied and they were saying, I don't even get why you denied it because you weren't going to get a truck up there anyway. So you're absolutely correct. And, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, this wasn't even much of a discussion. The only thing that was being discussed was why the utility companies aren't getting to it fast enough. Now, what we're seeing is more and more denials because the infill is, it's restricting their ability to get to their poles, et cetera. So, but you know what? We're not the only community with that issue, and there's always ways to figure it out. I think the best thing that came out of the meeting was that we all agreed to figure out a better way or a better process of getting these things permitted, and getting the process, if we're going to do an easement abandonment or allow an encroachment, then there's got to be a faster and better way to do it. So we're going to continue to work together. Go ahead.
On a different topic,
Yeah.
recycling.
Yes.
Our recycling program, the trash, the recycling is commingled and taken up to the sorting facility in Las Vegas, as I understand.
Correct.
China just decided that it doesn't want any more recycling. So what are they doing with that? Do they still have a market?
I don't know. I haven't talked to Republic about that. They've not indicated that there's been a big issue for them at this point in time. But I can certainly find out if it's going to change. As far as I'm concerned, it's not going to change our plans. Go ahead. Did you have an answer for
I don't know
it?
about your county or anything, we just had a meeting with our city of, with the trash company, and they were talking about the recycling and stuff like that in China and things like that. It's not that they don't want any of it, they want a certain grade. So the grade has to be, no, I mean, like, honestly, when you take out your trash and it's in those plastic bags, I always thought that was recycled. That's not recycled.
No, it's
Plastic
not.
isn't, styrofoam isn't, none of that is. Well, people think it is, so it's going right to recycle. Then they can't take it. It's a lot to process through. So I don't remember the grade level, but whatever it was, it's like they only want a 5 grade level. So they want plain things. They want plastic bottles, cans, and like paper bags, and that's recycle, and that's it, boxes, but it's a grade, not necessarily that they don't want any of it.
Yeah, clearly plastic shopping bags, because we were even told in the beginning, don't put those in there. And when we watched that facility, it's interesting, those plastic bags are always in the recycling anyway, but the way the recycling center worked was that they had these vacuums above people's heads, and they grab that bag and just throw it up, and it disappeared. It was gone.
Your website, I'm not sure if it has it or not, but you can go on and read it, and if not, we have EMWD where we are, and they have a whole write-up on the different recycling.
It's actually on the lids of our cans.
Oh, it is? Yeah.
No, I just meant where, there's a lot of commercial recycling operations that are just dumping the stuff that they get. They're just sending it to landfill because their market disappeared.
Yeah, it's not coming into our landfill.
Well, I know that.
Yeah, we better not. Yeah, so, and the other thing we'd like to do is, and unfortunately, we're pushing Republic, and to some degree, I suppose it's up to the various commercial entities, but we'd like to see more recycling from commercial entities, because there's a lot of recyclables there. George?
Yeah, Mark, I'm from Oregon, which is, of course, the recycling nutcase of the world. But the point is they do a good job of it up there. And so, I naturally have had a little bit of interest in this. And I went over to Republic.
Yeah.
And I said, there's so much opinions and everything going on. I don't think anybody knows what's going on anymore. And she said, I tell you, it's just simple. Throw everything, recyclables and everything, throw it in, and I live in a condominium. So she says, throw everything in the big blue roll-around containers. And everybody else, it doesn't matter how you separate your recycling, just throw it all together because it all goes to Las Vegas.
Yeah,
and
single
they sort
stream.
out everything up there, but she never said anything about quality grade. She just said throw everything in the garbage can because it doesn't matter anymore. So that's what Republic told me.
Yeah, well, that would certainly help our landfill, but I don't know that I would throw everything. But yeah, it's single stream, and they go, and because I went there to see how the process works, and they separate everything there 2 or 3 times as things come down. It's a pretty amazing process, to say the least. Yes, sir.
One of the things that kind of keep track of when it comes to recycling your plastic and cans and so forth need to be rinsed off of the food. If it's a cardboard box, say a pizza box, that's got pizza oil in the cardboard, that can't be recycled, that has to be thrown away. So if a food product penetrating the cardboard, rules it null and void, it has to go to a landfill or a dump. Now, which one, it's not our problem, we've got an arrangement. But the idea is, your pop bottles and your milk cartons and so forth, give them a fast rinse before you throw them in your recycle. That way they are recyclable and can actually be stuck to the Chinese, which we will regret someday, but that's.
Those pizza boxes, you can rip those in half and recycle the part of the cardboard that hasn't been tainted by the food.
Anything is clean, sure.
Yeah.
Well, some of the ladies at the Calvary Church, they take your plastic bags and they crochet them together.
Yes.
And they give them to the homeless, which is a good idea, which is a
Yeah,
great idea.
yeah, it's my understanding it takes about 700 to 800 of those bags to do a map. Yeah, I've seen those done.
Mayor, I have a question about codes.
Sure.
There's a structure that was built a few years ago behind a home on the block in front of me, on Pueblo. This structure appears to be, well, it has a garage, industrial garage doors, and on top it looks like it has apartments. By watching the activity, it looks like they're running a repair shop or something from it, because there's all kinds of cars there. And the only access to that building is through the utility easement. So they're using the utility easement as their driveway.
Really?
And I had called, when it was, right after it was built, I think I had called code enforcement. And the person I talked to at that time was not very pleasant. And pretty much cut me off and said, oh yeah, it's permitted, it's fine.
Well,
Just thinking about it, how can someone use a utility easement as the only access to a business or a
can't,
building?
you can't. Send me the address
Okay.
on my email and we will definitely follow up.
Yeah, 'cause it's-
Because they can't be running an operation of auto repair or
Oh, there's
whatever.
probably at least 7 cars sitting out there, and they use that utility easement right there between Mohegan and Pueblo as their driveway. That's the only
Okay.
access to it, because there's no way to get to it from Pueblo between the houses. There's not enough room, so they use the utility easement as their driveway.
Yep. Now, I will take a look at that. You know, and it's interesting because those are the kind of operations that the state legislature, not Sonny Borelli, by the way, tried to say that it was okay to do. And if it wasn't for Senator Borelli, who fought it tooth and nail, they would have, the state would have said all those kind of operations are okay in neighborhoods. And what they did basically, they would say that they were going to allow up to 3 employees, as many family member employees as they wanted, basically. And that, quote unquote, and we had talked about this before, as long as it doesn't interfere with parking or noise in the neighborhood. Well, how can you have 10 employees and not have an interference with parking? They knew that it was going to interfere, or as I had put it when I called those folks and said, what's really going to happen is those cars are going to park on 2 streets away and just walk in. And so that nobody would know that there was interference. But fortunately, Sonny Borelli pushed incredibly hard. People were pretty mad at him. I know they were down at the legislature. But he was able to kill that bill. But honestly, I expect it to be back next year. They will try again. And what we tried to say is, we have zoning for those kinds of operations, allow them to go there, and we'd get pushed back. And here's how they push back. Well, I don't see what's wrong with grandma making beads on a string and selling them on the internet. Nothing's wrong with that, and she's not going to be bothered. It's when you start saying that manufacturing is acceptable and repair is acceptable, and it starts taking place out of garages in the middle of quiet neighborhoods, that's what's unacceptable. And the pushback would be is, you're just against small business. It's like, seriously? Seriously? You know, I've owned a small business. I am not against small business, but I'm in favor of small business, but I'm also in favor of the sanctity of our neighborhoods. And to say that anything goes in a neighborhood is just flat wrong. So, but unfortunately, it'll probably be back, and Sonny will get beat up again next year probably when he tries to kill that bill again. Chuck?
May I
Sure.
go a little bit further on that?
Sure.
That bill actually came from a House member who used to be a city council member in Chandler. And a constituent went to him, so it was the city of Chandler that had this problem, so they're gonna try to change state law. Well, the bill was assigned, dual assigned to two committees in the Senate, the Commerce and Public Safety Committee, which I sit on, and then the Government Committee, which I'm the chair of. Well, the Commerce Public Safety Committee met on a Monday, my committee met on a Wednesday. So in the committee, I was trying to get them to, like, will you negotiate, do you want to fix this? But then when they didn't want to fix it, we passed out of one committee, they didn't want to come to the table, didn't want to negotiate because I wanted to protect all of us. Then I held the bill. Now the bill was also pushed and backed up by the Free Enterprise Club, which they bully you with a scorecard. If you don't feel it this way, we're going to give you a bad score. Well, I got a D, but that's okay because I got D's in high school anyway. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is I wanted to protect our district because and I even argued with them. Have you seen the garages in Lake Havasu? Have you ever been to Lake Havasu? No. I've seen garages you put 4 city buses in.
Yeah.
And but they didn't care. But that's the kind of pushback that we get from these organizations. They call themselves conservative organizations, but they're special interest groups for Phoenix only. And that's the biggest fight. So I'm proud to get that D, and Gina Collin got a C, but the other guy got an A, so he's bragging about that. So yeah. Anyway, film at 11.
Thank you. Chuck?
Yeah, tell them that you're gonna have somebody buy a house right across the street from them and build a big garage and start building cars in there, right across the street from their house. See what they say.
They're free advice about that money. So.
What is the ordinance now, I remember years ago, but what's the ordinance on parking commercial vehicles at your own home? They had a problem with people that were truck drivers that parked their semi there.
I don't remember the specifics, but I know that in some cases it's permissible, because you're gonna see like air conditioning trucks and that sort of thing. Those are permissible. I think it depends on the number of axles or something like that. The big 18-wheelers are not permissible, but I do see it on occasion. They're not there very long. It's usually a truck driver that's coming back home for 24 hours or something like that. I can check on the code. I don't have it with me, but some are permissible, some are not.
Okay. And what about parking vehicles for sale on a lot that's not yours?
Not permissible.
Not permissible. There's been a few of those around too.
Yeah, well, if you recall, it was 6 or 7 years ago, it seemed like every corner had 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 vehicles for sale. And what was happening was Lake Havasu City was becoming a used car lot. And so we had to make an ordinance to stop that. You can do it on your own property. You can sell, you can have a sign on it as long as it's your own property. But we just really were trying to avoid it. It got so bad what people were doing was in front of Bradley Ford, they were lining up their cars along that street to sell them because they figure, well, if they don't like what they see at Bradley Ford, maybe they'll buy mine. And it was just getting out of hand. And that's what's really unfortunate. The council sometimes will get complaints about putting a new ordinance in or a regulation, but those things really come from individuals who decide they're gonna take advantage of what isn't there, and then the community says you need to do something. We don't just think up these ordinances because we have nothing better to do. Every ordinance that I've ever seen passed is because the majority of the community has said it's time to fix it, so.
The other question I had was, did we just push off, or did we abandon the idea of fixing Lake Havasu between Swanson and the Mesquite?
I don't know.
Lake Havasu Avenue?
Yeah.
It's in the CIP. We've identified it as one of the many road projects that we want to accomplish here, but it's in the CIP, and there's some dollars that are tied to it. We're probably at least 3-4 years out from looking at that project itself. Obviously, you're seeing some construction on Lake Havasu Avenue. On the north side of
There's center
town.
divider there too, to
Yeah.
keep people from turning left into park,
Correct.
driveways that
Yeah.
wasn't very safe.
Yeah, the medians and expansion of those roadways make a lot of sense. So they're obviously heavily traversed. Another one that's going to be coming for the council at the next meeting is IGA with ADOT, and we're going to be looking at Swanson between Acoma and Smoke Tree. So we're going to be doing some improvements up in that area. We're more than a few months out from doing something as far as actual construction. But these are projects we love because we're getting federal dollars, and with a small local match, we're able to do some really great things for road improvements for the residents. So that's something that's coming up. Chuck?
Yeah, between Acoma and that, we had said this quite a while ago. We talked about it to Mark.
Mm-hmm.
There's an area, if you're heading north, or east, I guess, up Swanson.
Yeah.
Then it goes up a hill like this.
Yeah.
And then drops down into a dip.
Okay.
And a guy in the wheelchair almost got hit right there.
Oh,
Because when you're going up like this, you can't see down in that dip.
sure.
And I hope that gets fixed.
What are the improvements on that on Swanson?
That's done.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
fixed a while ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, was it fixed? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can't.
I thought it was a new one, that
Oh, okay.
I thought maybe it sunk.
Yeah. One of the things, and that's the Swanson, the design is for some nice little bike lane and some really neat pedestrian movement on that area. So that'll be real neat for pedestrians along Swanson there too.
Yes.
In today's society, politics seems to have become a cutthroat, enter-at-your-own-risk venture, one where integrity and honesty no longer seems to be the norm. How would you encourage the generation of people who are currently entering into voting age to maintain their integrity and participate in politics?
Great question. It's funny because I'm a believer that if you're going to enter politics, if you will, you need to do it for the right reason. And to me, the right reason is I want to serve my community. And if to serve your community, you'd better do it with honesty, integrity, ethics, common sense. Far too often we do see people, not necessarily at the local level, but sometimes, they enter it because they have their own agenda, and I have serious issues with that. How do I convince young people? I'm proud to say that we have young people right now on our council. Jenny Koch, Michelle Lynn, Cal Sheehy, young individuals that are on. Like I said, I serve with honesty and integrity. But it is hard to convince them to do it. And part of the reason is that it's become so divisive. And so somebody gets elected, and it doesn't take 5 minutes, and they're a member of the Good Old Boys Club. It's like, I remember when I first ran, I wasn't a member of whatever, I don't even know who the Good Old Boys are, but I wasn't a member of the Good Old Boys. until I got elected, and then I was a member of the Good Old Boys Club, and I was still waiting to be introduced to them because I've never met any of those good old boys. But that's what goes wrong, and so it's hard for people to say, you know what, I'm not putting up with that crap. And I'm just being honest, they don't want to do it. It's very difficult for them to say, I'm going to take the pot shots or whatever. I think, though, in my case, in the case of the members of the council, if you're doing it based on the fact that you're in it for the right reasons, you're willing to listen to people and try to solve the problem, then it works out fine. And I think 99.9% of the people in the community understand that, even when you have to say no. But what I think a lot of people forget is their opinion isn't the only opinion in town. I get that all the time. Well, you're not listening to me. No, I am listening. I'm not agreeing with you because 58% of the community says that's not what we want. And my job is to represent all citizens, but to make decisions based on what the majority of the citizens want and not what I want. I can tell you that over the last 12 years, there were decisions I made that were against what I truly believed in because the community had a different answer. So, but to convince young people, boy, if you got a magic wand to do it, because I think young people should get involved, but it's also harder for them because they're also trying to raise a family, they're into their jobs, and this job does not, you can't put in 3 or 4 hours a week and call it a day and say that's going to work. It doesn't work that way. You have to be really committed to it. Mr.
Yeah, if I could just follow up on both parts of that. One of them, we have history in the making here on this election. We have 2 people that are running for local office, one at the legislature and one for the city council, who were born and raised in Lake Havasu. And that's never happened before. And so it's a great thing. And then we have, as the mayor said, people who were raised here in town. But to the integrity question, to follow up on what I said earlier, I heard a candidate on the radio the other day say that the city spent $1 million for a piece of property that was only valued at $244,000. That's not a true statement if you want to talk about it.
It is not a true statement. The candidate for mayor was indicating that the city spent $1 million on that downtown piece of property, and it was only worth $244,000 according to the Mojave County assessor. Well, it's a shame when people don't know the difference between market value and assessed value. Think about your home. Go look at your property tax statement, and it will have an assessed value on there. And it will not be anywhere near what your market value is of that home. If it is, you're going to be woefully disappointed in trying to sell. Now, we paid about $1 million for that downtown property. By the way, the reason we bought that property was because the community at a major town hall indicated to us, we want you to do something about downtown. We need you to do a catalyst project to can showcase our downtown and show the business community what is possible down there. That property today, we spent about $1 million. My guess is that property today is worth about $1.2 million to $1.5 million, depending on who you talk to. We had it appraised, and it basically we paid right around the appraised value. So assessed value, Mojave County assessed value, has nothing to do with market value, and it's a shame that those kinds of bad facts get out there. By the way, that will be the future home of our Catalyst project. What we will ultimately do is create, half of it will be a public space, probably a public square that's got available Wi-Fi, shade structures where music can be listened to, and just generally a nice place to go. The other half will be sold off to private developers, and with any luck, we'll recoup almost everything we paid for the property itself. because we're going to be adding some infrastructure. So, and what we hope they will build there will be shops, restaurants, local, say, microbreweries, that sort of thing. So we really think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful project. Yes, sir.
The lady's question about how do we get more honesty or keep honesty in politics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little longer in the tooth than some of them, including you, Mark.
Yeah.
I've been through California politics because I was raised in it.
Sure.
My dad bailed out of it when he commented on the fact that the California Assembly voted itself the right to grant itself its own pay raises. Like he said, it will immediately turn into a profession, and it will go to hell because people will be constantly trying to raise money for the next election to get themselves reelected. It becomes a business, self-defeating. As long as the payroll of government employees is less than the overhead, that's an automatic filter to get rid of most of the chaff that would try to get self-elected. You've got to want to go into politics for the right reasons, like you say. And if they're the wrong ones, it's at the bottom of it is almost always make a buck. And if you filtered that part of it off, you've cleaned up 90% of your potential candidates. They're people who want to give back or help the community that are going to run. They crop up at the darndest times and for the darndest reasons. You don't have to go searching for them. You have to see to it that your kids get a decent education and learn that honor counts.
Sure.
If you do that, the rest of it falls into place and it becomes almost automatic.
Yeah. No, it's in terms of handing out pay raises to themselves. It's interesting the way ours works and our code. If we want to give council a raise, it only impacts a new council member, not existing. Now, having said that, I'm going to be honest. It's time we did something for council and mayor. You know when the last time they had a raise? 1993.
Well, the cost of overhead costs rise.
1993.
They never outstrip.
So, and so what happens is that a lot of people say, you know what, a council member makes $650 a month. A young person, if they've got to donate too much time for that, they go, I can't do it because I can't afford it, and my boss isn't going to give me the time off to do it. Yes, sir.
You know, I haven't been in a meeting in about a year, I'm sorry to say, but I have a question.
Sure.
This place called The View, up there, I've heard so many different things
Oh, yeah.
about that. Is that something that the city has some kind of a little bit of a vested interest in tying that into the McCulloch area?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that's going to be an independent living community. It's up there next to ASU. I think that's the one you're talking about. No, that's all done by private developers. They have similar operations throughout the country, primarily, I believe, in Texas. But it should be a very, very nice addition to the community. They'll eventually do a couple more buildings where it goes independent, assisted, and in memory care. And we were concerned initially about it being so close to ASU and whether or not that was going to be compatible. And ASU said just the opposite. We love the fact that we're going to have independent living of seniors right next to our campus because most of them are interested in lifelong learning. It's a great mix. And in fact, we're having some done in Tempe. So,
Mark?
yeah, Mike.
Just to clarify that, we've been involved with the views a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do assisted living and memory care, will not be at that site.
Oh, it's not going to.
No, that's strictly going to be for the senior living.
Okay.
The issue has been that that was designed for 55 and older active members. And most of the people that have put deposits down are probably fairly close to needing assisted living and so on and so forth. So the people that are buying is really not what the property was designed for. So hopefully when they expand their recruitment, if you will,
Sure.
into larger demographic areas, then they'll get more of the people that the place was designed for. But it's really gaining memory care type of people in an active community setting, which I'm not sure is going to go. But we were specifically told that any different needs like memory care or whatever will not be on that site.
Yeah, then they changed their mind, because before they were gonna do
Yeah.
all connected, so that somebody that started an independent living didn't feel like they had to move across town or whatever, just down the street or whatever. But that's good information. Yes, ma'am.
Two things, and very quickly. If you followed any number of the surveys that are taken about who you trust or the least trusted occupations, and depending on how the question is asked, the outcome usually is that people trust their local officials and have more confidence
Correct.
in their local officials than they do, say, state and federal representatives, which is always kind of interesting. And there is a book that kind of follows what you had recommended about when boomers bail, and as far as the health of communities. And a husband and wife team by the name of the Fallows has written a book called Our Towns, and they've made a point of going around the country and meeting with communities like ours, and which ones seem to be healthy and seem to be in a good position for the future, as opposed to those that are dying off. And these kinds of things in those communities where this sort of thing is provided for listening and input above and beyond what is required,
Sure.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons in those surveys, I've seen some of them similar as well, where the local elected officials seem to be the most trusted. I think one of the reasons is that just like what's happening in this room today, or if somebody sees me in the grocery store, in other words, it's access. It's so easier to trust somebody you can actually sit and talk to for a second, as opposed to they're 2,000 miles away. And so I get that. Even when you disagree, you still have the ability to have the conversation, which is important. Yes, ma'am.
I have a thought that follows up on this lady's idea, and that would be the thought of those of you that are leading our city, our state, our region, looking at mentoring high schoolers to give them the thought, the idea, the concept, and to get them before their brains are more corrupted, for lack of a better, least honest way to put it. As a former teacher, I taught kindergarten through 4th grade computer education in the early 80s. Unheard of. I was told that I couldn't do that because I was spoiling the high schoolers. Well, if you get them when they're young, and you can expand their knowledge and their thinking, you have a better pool, and you have the ability to provide the ethics, the dignity, the moral compass.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because how many years ago was it, Jimmy?
2010 you started.
2010, I started the Havasu Youth Advisory Council of high schoolers, and we take them to this League of Arizona Cities and Towns conference every year. They have participated in democracy and actually came in first place. And really, we try to show them how the process works. And we were just talking about some of their past advisory councils. One's going to Penn. Another one right now is headed to NAU. She wants to become a doctor. We have another one going to NAU. She wants to come back to be a teacher.
One going in the Air Force.
One went into the Air Force, traveled overseas first and came back. I mean, and one of the things that I tried to do when they go to the League of Conference, we have a lot of politicians across the state, and I try to introduce them, and just so that they see how who's in those positions, what it takes to be there. But we talk a lot about honesty, integrity, all the rest of that good stuff, and it's been a good experience for them and a wonderful experience for me. So, yes.
I just want to inform everybody, okay, we have a large group of needy children in this community. And the state does pay for their education, but their extracurricular, I'm not saying that right, curricular activities, they do not. And last week I went to the Elks Lodge because they were out, they play golf on Saturday mornings, and they were out of money. So the Elks gave me a gift certificate for $300. So they're not gonna start again until after the holiday, Labor Day weekend, because right now it's too hot. But if you're at the golf course, give them a gift certificate, whether it's $5, $10, because that's gonna keep them playing golf. And now the bowling alley lets them get by with $2 per child, and they get their shoes free. But it is a big deal here, and it's getting bigger.
Yeah, no, we have.
Just to let people know.
Yeah, some of the car clubs, in fact, I know Havasu Deuces right now.
Yeah.
They actually raise money as part of their annual get-together and give athletic scholarships, pay the $400 or whatever, so.
I've seen that in the paper.
Yeah,
But I
they
will
do a good
ask you
job of it.
another thing, that I don't want you guys laughing at me, but I don't.
Aw, come on.
I hope you don't, I hope when I leave here, I don't go home and there's a cop there giving me a ticket. Because.
Where'd you park?
I will tell you, no, I will tell you, we need, in the outskirts of the town, we need some bigger stop signs. This last month, I ran 2 stop signs because I didn't see them. But when you get down closer to the highway, they're bigger. You know, and so I'm thinking, maybe if you put those yellow lights on them or something, or something. But you know, we don't have street lights. But we don't have street lights. You know, we don't have that. But since the future maybe mayor is here, he could maybe think about that in the future, because I ran 2 stop signs this last month, and you know, and it's funny because when nobody is coming stopped on the other
Good thing the
side of
police chief isn't here.
You won't get political,
But
get
just
off
to make
for
them
that
bigger, or put a yellow, you know, one of those yellow things on them.
And where do you live?
I'm not telling you.
All right,
Because
let me call on June. She hasn't had and we're almost.
Okay.
Oh, we are? Go ahead.
Does code enforcement, do they control any part of the wash? Do they, you know, if a resident calls them up and is complaining about something large in a wash?
Well, if we catch illegal dumping, we'll certainly deal with it. The washes are not technically under our jurisdiction, but if we see illegal dumping, whether it be in the desert, the wash, or whatever, yeah, we'll follow up on it.
Because one of my friends, she lives on Cheyenne, the house next door to her, they're renters, and so evidently the owner came by and they have this huge trampoline in their front yard. And evidently the owner said, no, I don't want it in the front yard, put it in the back. Well, over a weekend and everything, my neighbor gets up and there's this thing sitting in the wash. That's where they put their trampoline. She called code enforcement, and she also went on the website, she took a picture, but trampoline is still in the wash.
Yeah, okay. Send me the where is it?
Cheyenne.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right, we still got more questions. Yes, sir.
On the 20th of this month, it looks like the county is getting ready to pass a stormwater management ordinance. Okay, it looks like they've already gone through it. They're gonna pass it. Okay, and it basically talks about what can be put into the washes and so on and so forth. And one of the things is dechlorinated pool water. And it says right now that the current proposal is for unincorporated areas of the county. Okay?
Correct.
The current deal. But I see that coming down the road as the county will push it down our throat that we won't be able to drain pools into the street anymore.
I don't think they would be allowed to do that. They have no jurisdiction.
And we're, as I figured, just rough numbers, we're putting 15 to 20 million gallons of water into our washes and storm drains every year from swimming pools.
I don't know.
I'm just using.
I don't know
real simple
how to
numbers,
calculate
okay?
that.
Okay. I would think that we could come up with a better use of that water. And like out there at the Havasu Riviera where they're pumping thousands of gallons a day out of the lake to use for dust control and compaction and so on and so forth, we could be using pool water just as well, okay?
Might be able to.
And it would be a use for that water instead of taking some of our natural resource that, you know, water is our major thing here. If we didn't have any water, there probably wouldn't be a Lake Havasu.
Agreed. Yep, the lake wasn't here either, so. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's some possibilities there, how the logistics would work, I'm not sure. But there's, hey, look, as far as I'm concerned, any conservation of water we can do, the better off we're gonna be in the long term. Okay, yes.
I just want to say you are very visible. You are out there with the community. It's not even your job, but you're at pretty every function the city has.
That's my evil twin.
You're very accessible, and it makes it very nice for the community.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, one more question. Well, Chuck, you've had quite a few, so I'm gonna let this lady here. Go ahead.
There are people who always question about whether or not businesses can be located in certain areas like the mall or new restaurants opening up on different areas in town. And
Sure.
there are always those conspiracy rumors that you don't let new businesses in.
Right, I've heard some of those.
Well, I was just curious how you would address and how you would encourage new businesses to be able to open up in areas that are supposedly unoccupiable.
Well, first of all, we do have an economic development group, Partnership for Economic Development. And they're always working with outside investors and or site selectors, etc., to bring new businesses in town. It's almost become a science these days when it comes to a restaurant or anything else locating to an area. They do all kinds of various demographics, and if you don't meet the demographics, they won't relocate. We had an opportunity a few years ago of a different type of grocery store that I thought was going to be terrific. And if I recall correctly, there was a particular statistic of number of people in a household. I wanted to say they wanted, I don't remember exactly, like 2.7 or 2.8, and we had 2.3, and they said, nope, won't work. And it's like, really? So we always encourage, when it comes to the mall works very hard. That's not a city property, but the mall works very hard in trying to bring new stores into the area. You know what's really unfortunate is the mall opened right at the beginning of the Great Recession, and then across the country you saw malls closing. So they've worked hard. It's gone through a bankruptcy. The new owners, though, continue to work hard to bring new businesses to the area. I'd love to see a restaurant. In fact, one time Olive Garden said, we're moving into the mall. The mall owners said they're moving into the mall. They put in plans to the city. We were ready to approve them. And corporate of our Olive Garden said, we're cutting back.
Well, they went through a bankruptcy.
Yeah. So.
Also, the mall is not the only area where restaurants and other businesses could go to. You have the
Absolutely.
South Side.
South Side. But we don't tell them where to go.
Right.
They do it based on what site is best suited for them. And yes, I've heard the rumors about, well, Olive Garden doesn't come here because Chagru's won't let them. And I always wondered about that. I always thought, Chagru's doesn't even own an Italian restaurant. Why would they care? You know, it's hilarious, some of the some of the conspiracy theories. But now we welcome new businesses with open arms. But you know, it all boils down to demographics and what they believe is appropriate for their success. So I think oh, go ahead.
Well, I can expand on that a little bit. They just opened a new place, 360 Deli, just opened up out at the mall. You have Hangar 24 across the street from the mall. We just approved 2 new restaurants, Shotgun Jenny's.
Yeah, south side.
On the south side, and another one on the south side. We have a new Indian restaurant here in town. We got a brand new Mexican restaurant here in town. We have a new Cuban restaurant here in town. There's restaurants that are coming here constantly. And if anybody can show me where a restaurant was not allowed to come here, I would appreciate that, because I know of no restaurant that has said, we want to open in Lake Havasu City, and they were blocked. Not one. That's just a rumor that goes around. And it's like I saw Bigfoot yesterday in one of the washrooms. It's the exact same kind of rumor.
Well, tell them to pick up the trampoline.
Is that all the UFO in the lake?
All right, go
Is there
ahead.
anything new on the Hastings building?
No.
Actually, the
do you know?
Halloween store is going to move in there. The Halloween store that was at the
Oh,
mall
is that right?
is going to move in there for the season. So, just for the season. Yeah.
Okay, again, next meeting. Oh, go ahead.
I don't have a question, I just want to inform the community of something we're working on. If you've ever been down to Prescott, and in December, they have an Acres Day or Acres Night, and it's a function that they have to give money to the kids of the community for music. Well, just this, in April, we lost our dear Jim Dunham, which was our community choir director. And 3 of us, Nikki and Gloria Hart and myself, were getting together, and we're going to set a date with Brian Allen, or is it Allen
Brian Allen.
For March 22nd, and we are working, and we may have to talk to you, Cal, on getting a Dunham's Magical Night of Music here in town on March 22nd of next year. We just kind of go through all the legal things that we have to go through, the 501c3 and the corporation or whatever we need. But it's going to be downtown, and we're going to we'll be talking to the community via business owners downtown about this magical night of music. And if you want to see more or less what it's like, if you go online on ackersnight.com, ACKERS, and it's in Prescott, and that will show you what we want to do here in town, honoring Jim, but all the proceeds would be going to the children of Havasu for music.
Very nice.
Schools.
Cool.
Very
Thank
cool.
you. Okay, our next meeting again, September 14th. In between, we have an election, and I encourage you to vote yes on Prop 409. I wanted to talk about it more today, but we never did get to it. But again, if you have questions on Proposition 409 that you need answered, any of the council members will answer it. We'll come over and talk to you wherever you're at. Be happy to do it.
There's newspaper inserts back there by the door for anybody who wants more information.
Perfect. So thank you all for being here.